Welcome to the Merlin Crypto Market Update located on the X app. I'm Abs, the host and senior engagement officer at Merlin, and today's episode features a replay from our Merlin X Spaces. Every other Tuesday at 8:30 p.m., you can catch us live on the X app at Get Merlin Crypto. We dive into captivating discussions about cryptocurrency and blockchain technology with our engaged audience, special guests, and the founders of Merlin. Please note, these spaces can sometimes experience technical hiccups and end suddenly. It's all part of the experience. Thanks for tuning into the Crypto Market Update, proudly brought to you by Merlin, the smartest way to track your crypto.
Hello, everyone. I'm just trying to test out the microphone settings here. Can you let me know if you can hear this, Gonzo?
Yeah, I hear you loud and clear.
Okay, perfect, guys.
Can everyone else give us a thumbs up, guys, or a little heart emoji or something if you guys can hear us loud and clear?
Okay. I'm going to add Mario up here. Awesome. And Gonzo, while we're waiting for people to come in, we can just chat it up for a little bit because there's a lot of exciting news going on. And you know what caught my attention is that Grayscale dumped $500 million worth of Bitcoin once again today. So I think it'd be cool to just maybe people in on why they're doing that because we talked about it earlier, and then we'll get into our topics I have prepared.
Yeah, so basically what's happening is, you have the guys that are buying, so there's a lot of buying pressure. With GBTC, it was a little bit different because it was a conversion, right? So you had people that were buying into GBTC, right? And they didn't have access to the underlying Bitcoin. It was a very inefficient way or a very inefficient product, right? That usually was trading at a premium when we're in the middle of the bear market. And then it crashed down when Bitcoin came down in 2022. And then it was at a discount, right? So when it was at a discount, a lot of people got into the trade. So what's happening now is that people are, for the time, have access to that Bitcoin and they can sell it or they can keep it on there. I think because Grayscale is charging so much, I think people are deciding to leave, right? I think that Grayscale gambled on the fact that, we can charge whatever we want, even though these guys are going to charge, because these people are going to stay with us because they're not going to want to sell their Bitcoin and create a tax event, right? That's what they were banking on, I think. And what we're seeing is that some people are deciding to kind of sell their Bitcoin, depending on when they got in. They could be in significant profit. And so we just need to wait until kind of it dies down. It takes 2 days to settle. So I know a lot of people have been watching the wallets and the Bitcoin gets moved into the exchanges. But so anything that's settling today is probably from, I would say, it's from Friday, right? So it's from because it takes about 2 days to settle.
That's good to know, Gonzo. And another thing I'm excited to address tonight, Mario, first of all, how are you feeling, my friend? And your reaction to the Gemini news, that's what I'm excited to hear about because they hyped this thing up on Twitter and there was a lot of ETF rumors. We're going to break down how it was a step in the right direction, but what was your reaction, Mario?
Hey, brother, I'm feeling good, man. I'm happy to be here. Happy to hear your voice. It's been a while since I've been on the show and we got to speak. So it's certainly good. I got to speak with Gonzo in Spanish this morning, so that was nice. But yeah, I'm feeling good. So the Gemini news, correct me if I'm wrong, I've been a little bit out of the game the last couple of days, but it looks like all it is they're launching perpetual contracts. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I honestly don't really know what that means. I'm not like the most financial literate person, I guess you could say, but I mean, it certainly is not as exciting as I thought it was going to be. The rumors were kind of going around that we could potentially have like an XRP ETF, and that was what was going around in the XRP community. So the perpetual contracts, I don't know if either you or Gonzo can explain to me, but I mean, it doesn't sound that exciting.
Gonzo, I can explain a little bit about what it is. So it's derivatives, basically. It would be the simplest way to understand it. You can use leverage contracts. You can now bet on futures. It's pretty exciting because it gives you a lot more options, but now you can short it. Gonzo, I know this is a step in the right ETF standpoint. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so I still need to do my research in it, but I really do believe that this is where we're going, right? I think it's just a matter of time before we lose the ability to use leverage on these exchanges, right? Regulation comes in, it's really going to go away. We're not supposed to be using it. People use VPNs, but I think they're really going to crack down on that. And what we're going to be left with is the futures product, right? The options, so that you can have a call or put. You guys can hear me, right? You guys can hear me okay? So it's a call or put. As far as the futures, that's what we would actually need, right? And I don't know what this is, right? But think about like the futures product that was approved for Ethereum back in October, right? And that's why people are so bullish on the next trade, right? Because when Grayscale went to court, they fought the SEC and all the excuses that they had been giving. Because remember, the first kind of spot ETF was applied for by Gemini. I want to say like 10, 12 years ago, right? And we finally got it approved. And so all the excuses that the SEC had been giving as far as like a market of significant size, and they said that it was manipulated and all this stuff, and the judge was basically like, no, you guys are being capricious, and I can't think of the other word, but basically slammed the SEC, right? And so now we have the spot ETF, and so the next trade that people are looking at is Ethereum, right? Because we already have the futures product, and if you follow the same logic, the same kind of case law that's been established by the Grayscale case, they should approve, right? But nothing's 100%. Personally, I don't care if they approve it or not. I think that it's a narrative and it's going to run, right? So whether they approve it, that deadline comes up in May, right? And so we're going to know in May if it gets approved or not. But I think we're going to get a significant run up in Ethereum and its ecosystem prior to the announcement.
How do you feel about the Solana price chart, Gonzo? Because this is one me and my friends were looking at 2 nights ago. This project went from, let me just look at the chart real quick. This project went from $20 in October of 2023 all the way to $130 by December. It's now retraced. It's about $85 today. Is this a project you think is going to retrace, all the way back to $20, or are you not paying attention? What's your perspective?
Well, we were talking about it. Like I first started doing my deep dives back when we hit that $8 level, right? We went last year, it was $8, and I had told Johnny like, hey, if this thing doesn't go to zero, it's absolutely not going anywhere, and I think this is the time, right? And so by the time I'd done mine, I was ready to go. We're at $11, $12, things like that. I think we gave it to the community around that range. I think the last entry we gave the community or the Warrior Academy was at $17.90. It was like that major trend line that we had been following. So now we have to just see how much we pull back, right? There's some support there at the $80 level. The next kind of range is in that 60. But if we come all the way back down to that major trend line, that could be $40, $50, right? It just depends on when it decides to peel back and what Bitcoin does, right? Because it runs the market. So if Bitcoin decides to pull back to $32,000, I think Solana will pull back some more. And we just have to see where that support resistance thing is. But that's why they say it's timing the market, right? And if you'd been through the whole bear market, accumulating these projects in the depths of the bear market, and then you'd be up right now, at least an 8x, right, or 7x. If you sold the top, maybe a 10x. So yeah, I mean, I'm waiting. I'm being patient, and I'm just waiting for my entry for Solana.
I mean, I feel like there's some of these projects like Cardano and Solana that have skyrocketed over the last 4 months. They might be entering like a short-term bearish phase for like a 3-month period, but there's a lot of currencies that really haven't moved at all. XRP, XLM, Quant Network. I mean, I believe back in 2022, that project went from $40 to $260 in a bear market. And now we're currently sitting at $100. There's a lot of potential in some of these other projects, Mario. Is there any that you're keeping an eye on? Maybe Chainlink or something along those lines?
Yeah, I'm still waiting on the sidelines. I want to see first what kind of correction, what type of correction we're going to get, and also the projects that are going to be most affected. I definitely have my eyes on Chainlink. I definitely have my eyes also on Quant. I have my eye on Matic. There's also a couple of gaming ones that I'm keeping an eye on. I want to see how we correct and kind of the projects that take the biggest beating. I definitely think that we have more downside potential just based on history and how we've corrected aggressively, before going into a halving, and then that's when things kind of the sentiment start to change, after a couple months after the halving. So I'm just keeping an eye, but yeah, some of those projects, I don't have the list in front of me, but some of the big ones that everybody always talks about, I certainly have more room, and I would like to have a bigger position, especially in Matic and Chainlink.
Gonzo, what are some of the projects that you get excited about? Like, why are people so... Avalanche is another one that comes to mind, but what makes people excited about Solana in particular?
I think it's just because of the whole narrative, like the cheap transactions, everything that happened, right, kind of rose from the ashes. You had a big meme thing that took place where people were doing transactions, are able to do memes and not have to pay a lot in gas. You had 2 major airdrops, right? You had the Jito airdrop and you had the Pith airdrop, right? And so that's like an injection of liquidity into the system. And so a lot of the times what people do is they keep the airdrop, but sometimes they trade into the mother chain, right, which is Solana. And so the next real big airdrop that's coming is Jupiter. They call it Juperary, right? It's at the end of the month. I think it's going to be kind of like when we look at Uniswap and when that was airdropped and what of a big deal it was for the ETH ecosystem. I think we're seeing that with Solana. So for me, I look at Solana as like one step behind ETH, right? But I do believe, we're going to get some price action, especially when you get that airdrop. People are going to be kind of trading back into Solana. I'm really bullish on the DePIN narrative, right? So like Render, which is decentralized cloud computing with Akash. Render is the decentralized GPU. There's a new project that I tweeted about. It's called Aether. right? It's kind of like a render. I think the narrative will be that it's the render killer, right? And the difference between that and render is that these guys already have a relationship with NVIDIA, right? NVIDIA is the one that makes those GPUs where we've had a shortage. If you follow the stock market, like NVIDIA has absolutely crushed it. So these guys have a relationship with NVIDIA. And so they have access to those GPUs. And when they do their decentralized thing, they're going to kind of like rent out that GPU power around the world. But if you guys want to check out my Twitter, I reposted it so you guys can read about it. But that hasn't come out yet. So I'm kind of keeping my eye on newer projects. Of course, I like Atom. I like that ecosystem. So, I've got Atom and Osmosis Stake, Celestia, Injective's done a hell of a run. Stargaze is their NFT kind of project platform that has its own cryptocurrency called Stars. So I like that. So I'm kind of staking in that system and then just waiting for the different airdrops that are coming out. But yeah.
Gonzo, as I look at the Bitcoin price chart, one of the things that kind of sticks out to me is there's not a lot of support at these levels from a very short-term perspective. I think we could go to $36,000. And I don't think that would be devastating for like the market overall. But what I'm more concerned about is some of these altcoins. Like, are we going to see a 40-cent XRP if we get a $36,000 Bitcoin? Or do you think a lot of these altcoins have mostly bled? Because it's so disappointing when I'm just looking at the price charts and I'm live reacting to this, guys. Like, over the last 8 months, there are some altcoins that have skyrocketed and some that have just been left behind. And I'm wondering how much of an impact is Bitcoin pulling back over the short term here going to have on some of these altcoins? So what do you think, Gonzo, from that perspective? $36,000 Bitcoin, is that going to destroy some of these alts in the short term?
Yeah, I think so. And it's very feasible, right? Like when you look at I got my laptop up, when I look at the bull market support band on Bitcoin, it's kind of at that level right now, which is the 21 SMA, 20 week EMA. It could be flip flop. I'm not remembering right now, but that's over like in that level already. We have the 100-week SMA a little bit lower. And it just makes a lot of sense that we broke out from that range where we had all that resistance at 32,000. And then we broke out and we haven't come back to retest it. Now, look, we don't know, nothing's guaranteed. So like if you want to get into Bitcoin, right, I would scatter your buys, like starting at maybe 35, 34, 33, 32, and then hopefully it's down and it goes into that level, like your orders get filled. But if you think that you're just going to like jump on an exchange, usually the exchanges go down. So you want to make sure that you kind of have your buy orders all set. As far as XRP, I think that XRP is already kind of devastated. It's already, it hasn't done a big run. So I think it'll correct less than some of the other altcoins that have done like, already like a 10x. You have your renders of the world. Celestia has absolutely crushed it. Gaming like Prime. Those projects will pull back a little bit more, but they also keep an eye on it. They're also the projects that bounce back faster, right? And so that's why I love the crypto bubbles, because you can go to different time frames and you can see which narratives and which projects bounce back faster. Because to me, those are the projects that I want to get into, because those are the projects that are going to do well when Bitcoin finally goes up, right? But you have your laggards, like ADA came down to support. I think there's going to be a breakout on that. HBAR had some positive news with the thing with XRP. They also had like a huge $600 million fund that was like approved. And a lot of these projects, when they announce these funds, they kind of have a good run. I don't think anything yet in HBAR, but the good thing about where we're at in the market right now is that it's very forgiving, right? So like, for example, I'm starting a dollar cost average into Rune, right? I got in at $4, right? It went back up a little bit, 415. It's peeled back, it's 8. And so I'll deploy a little bit more, right? And then I'll just wait. And so, if it goes down a little bit more, so like, for example, if you have, let's say $1,000 that you want to deploy on that first support level, maybe like 2, 3, 10, 20%. Wait to see what happens. If it goes down lower, you deploy a little bit more capital. And if it really gets peeled back, then, you deploy the rest of your capital. The good thing though, is that it's going to bounce and it's going to come back up probably to your entry price. And so it's very forgiving, as opposed to like in the middle of the bull run when these things have already ran really hard, right? Like people were FOMOing into Solana at 115, 120, right? And now they're caught on the wrong side of the trade. And so you want to wait for these pullbacks.
And that's what I'm paying attention to when it comes to Bitcoin. Like I'm doing the same thing you are, Gonzo, with a couple of trend lines. And like one of the things that's clear is ever since January of 2023. So like 12 months ago exactly, it's been nothing but bullish momentum for me. Like it almost looks like a parabolic like altcoin chart. If you chopped off the previous bull market and you just looked at it from the last 12 months, Bitcoin went from $16,000 to about $45,000. That's a 3x during what many consider a bear market year. And so it's clear to me, and once we break all-time highs here, guys, we're going to be in different type of territory with big companies, BlackRock, Grayscale, Fidelity. All of their clients are going to get access to Bitcoin. I think we could see something a little bit different than we've seen in the past. Maybe we don't stop at 100K. Maybe we do go to $200,000 Bitcoin. And hopefully, eventually, some of that liquidity would go into the altcoins as well, like XRP and XLM. And But that's going to be a separate narrative. And we're more relaxed here. We're more laid back in this analysis we're doing right now. But if you just think about it from a broad perspective, Gonzo, bull market, peak of the bull run is actually supposed to take place in 2025, not 2024. So this is going to be another year that's positive. It's great. I think Bitcoin definitely breaks all-time high in 2024. But the peak of this market, I think, is going to take place sometime in 2025. It might be January, it might be November. That's up for debate. But this year, we're not even close to another bear market, and we've got all this positive momentum behind us. So, Mario, what are some of your thoughts? What's on your mind when you look at the market and like kind of where we are today?
Yeah, it's like you said. That's when we look at 2023. When we look at Bitcoin's price chart, like on the macro of the year, it was definitely a bullish year. I mean, as you stated, we went from 16,000 all the way up to 45,000. So that's definitely a bullish year. Now going into this new year, I think that we feel as this is going to be the year where the true bullish momentum for as far as price action is going to come, because everybody, or at least the people that are in crypto, most of them are aware. I want to say a high percentage of them are aware of the cycles and the halving, and they know that once the halving comes, then typically it sends Bitcoin on a bull run, which then altcoins follow. So I think the pressure is kind of, and when I say pressure, obviously air quotes, but the pressure is on Bitcoin this year to really prove that it's in this same cycle. And we've got a lot of new things at play now, and there's always new things that come in. There's always new narratives that come in every cycle that make people question whether it's going to be the same, whether history is going to repeat itself. But the pressure is on for us to see if we're going to see the cycle repeat. If, like you said, we're going to set a new all-time high this year, and sometime in 2025, that's when we really get that euphoric moment across the entire market. I think, for me personally, and this is just the way that I'm playing it, I'm playing the market as if it is going to repeat itself, because until it's different, I'm going to play my cards as if it's not. So I'm going to continue looking at the previous cycle. So far, we've been mimicking it very similar. So it's been a pretty close rhyme, and it hasn't really proven to deviate from the cycle. So for me personally, I am counting on Bitcoin setting an all-time high, and then at some point there being an alt season. And I think that as we start to see all this different regulatory framework, conversations that are happening in Congress and the government, that too could be a strong fact altcoins, because there's been a very big regulatory uncertainty for altcoins on whether they're securities, they're not securities, who regulates them. Is it the CFTC, SEC, or another 3 or 4 lettered government agency? And as we start to see these litigations, with XRP considered not a security, or labeled not a security by the judge, and now we've got Coinbase and Binance that are fighting the SEC, those could also be very important case decisions to kind of give this clarity and potentially send the altcoins in their own kind of bull run, maybe together with Bitcoin or after Bitcoin, aside Bitcoin. Who knows? Maybe that part of it can be different. So I'm excited to see how it all plans out. Like, nonetheless, we've got a lot of good stuff happening, like you said, this year, and it's going to definitely be a positive year. So I'm super excited to see how everything unravels.
I agree with you, Mario. And when I look at the altcoins, there's 2 narratives that get me really excited. There's the ETF narrative, and that's the one that's on the forefront right now. We're going to address that in the next 3 months. But the tokenization narrative is the one that really changes the market, whether it's HBAR or XRP or Cardano. All of these assets are going to have tokenized real world assets on the blockchains going forward. That's going to change everything. So when that happens, that's when people in our community can really start celebrating and deciding exactly what exits or what price points they would like to exit the market. But Gonzo, floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at the total 3, which is the total market cap that is minus Bitcoin and ETH. So it's all the altcoins. And that dividing line that I have is like that $450 billion level, where like when we're under it, that was the bear market. We broke out above, and then it's kind of like the bull run, or like what I feel is the next phase. And we've come down and retested it, wicked down a little bit. So, and we could even come down. We could lose like probably like another 50 where support is, and then bounce and continue upwards, right? It wouldn't be weird. It wouldn't be crazy, right? To lose another 50 billion, but it would just be an opportunity to go ahead or cost average, right? When you look at Bitcoin dominance has bounced. That's why we're seeing the altcoins kind of bleed. But in the overall trend, we're starting to make like highs and lower high, low or lower low. And I think we're in the process of making the lower high and then going to roll back over, right? So we just kind of have to pay attention to Bitcoin dominance, see what it does. If Bitcoin dominance continues to rise, and Bitcoin goes up, then it's all good, right? But if Bitcoin decides to peel back and Bitcoin dominance goes up, then it's going to bleed out the altcoins. But like we said, we're at a phase on the market where it's all opportunities. Let the market come to you, have a plan, right? Don't be all wishy-washy about it. Have a plan, have your watch list, know what narratives you want to get into, right? If you don't have a lot of time, pick 2 projects that are in the narrative that you like, put them on your watch list, and then dollar cost average, and then sit on your hands and let this thing run.
And Gonzo, there's a couple projects that have me like really excited over the next 12 months or so. There's Ripple, obviously, we've got Stellar, but Chainlink is another one that catches my attention because the partnerships that Chainlink has been able to collaborate and build during this bear market is very different from other projects. Chainlink is working with companies like Walmart. They're working with companies like, or not even companies, conglomerates like Swift, where they're practicing or enabling tokenized assets on top of Chainlink, as well as building decentralized applications that can communicate with multiple blockchains at once. Those are the conversations that we're waiting for. So when you look at projects like that, it reminds me of the quote we saw from Rosie Rios. In 2024, we moved from speculation into utility. Just because it starts in 2024 doesn't mean we're going to reap the profits in that year. What do you think, Gonzo? Is that going to have any effect in the short term, or is that much more of a, let's start with Mario actually, is that much more of like a long-term game from your perspective?
Sorry, Abs, I have the kids talking to me. Could you repeat the question?
Yeah,
again?
I was just saying, when you look at like how Chainlink is working on tokenized assets with Swift, what does that mean to you for the short term versus the long?
Oh yeah, I think that the tokenization in itself is going to be a massive narrative, and I actually think that could be an even bigger catalyst than these ETF talks, just because of how much can be tokenized. So, and we heard I think was the CEO of BlackRock. He mentioned live on TV that tokenization is something to keep a very close eye on. So yeah, I think for the short term, I mean, we definitely have players. We have blockchain projects that are focusing on blockchain, on tokenization, I should say. But I still feel like there's because of the regulatory clarity and or uncertainty that we still have, especially in the United States, and given the fact that the United States plays such a big role in world economy, I think that it might still be a little bit a ways to go. And obviously, by a ways to go, I don't mean 10 years, but possibly I want to say 5 years, and that's just my personal guess. If I have
Mario,
to take a
quick
guess.
thoughts right back to you, because Brad Garlinghouse gave a couple revelations from Davos this week, and that's what we titled the space about. Because he was asked about an XRP ETF, and his response was, there will definitely be ETFs for other currencies. And then he was asked again, and he gave the same response. So what were some of your biggest takeaways? We talked about it a lot last week. When it came to Davos, what were some of the things that stuck out to you?
Well, one of the things that stuck out to me is how blockchain companies continue to be strong at these kind of events. So for anybody that still has any doubts on whether blockchain is here to stay, well, that should tell them that it's definitely here to stay. But yeah, look, the future is 100% going to move into blockchain. And Jamie Dimon, and even though he asked for CNBC, I think it was, to stop talking about shit, which he referred to Bitcoin. Yeah. He did admit that the technology is he did explain what the technology is, and he knows that it's here to stay. He doesn't seem to believe in Bitcoin, even though he's a participant in the BlackRock Bitcoin ETF, but that's a topic for another day. But yeah, I think that primarily what it signals to me is just the amount of things that are happening behind the scenes that we just don't know about, like Brad Garlinghouse not really answering the question. And this happens so often where some of these guys get asked very straightforward, specific questions and they don't answer them. And it's understandable because, they don't want their competition to find out, or they have, NDA agreements, and that's totally understandable. So I think the big takeaway is that we are investing in the future rails, right? As Johnny Crypto always says. And I know he's not here, so I got to give him a shout out for that. But we're investing in the rails of the future, and it's not just the future of finance. That's the part that's like super exciting, is that we don't just have the opportunity to invest in what the new financial system for the world is going to look like. We have the opportunity to invest in what the evolution of the internet and internet of value is going to look like. And when we say internet of value, it applies to literally everything. It could be assets, it can be the tokenization, as we were just talking about, gaming. I mean, the list goes on, and there's probably going to be a number of things that get developed and come out over the years that we're not even seeing yet. Just think about the internet when it first started and how it's evolved to what it is today. And here we are having a conversation, across across the United States on our cell phone devices. You probably would need to have a computer back then to even just do a VoIP call. But yeah, I think that's the part that gets me excited. And seeing these blockchain players at events like Davos, it's just further confirmation as to what we're investing in.
Gonzo, what are some of your thoughts on some of the stuff that not only Mario had to say, but the clips we heard out of Davos this week? When it came to Brad Garlinghouse versus, let's say, like Jamie Dimon, you're getting two sides of polar opposite perspectives. You got one guy saying it's total fraud. You got another guy building the next generation of finance. But Mario's statements are totally true. Crypto companies are dominating these discussions. Jeremy Allaire, Brad Garlinghouse, even guys like Max Kaiser and Michael Saylor, who are kind of Bitcoin maximalists, they always represent at these events. So what were some of your takeaways, Gonzo?
I think Jamie Dimon is just playing his role, right? Like he sits there and he tells people that Bitcoin's a pet rock, while JP Morgan, like what Mario said, is the AP for the BlackRock ETF, which means they purchased the Bitcoin, right? And then when he's talking about like, oh, it's for sex traffickers, well, remember what happened with that whole Epstein case where they went to court and they paid a bunch of millions of dollars victims because they didn't catch any of it. So when he's into like money laundering and all the things that nefarious things, like the banks and cash are the number one that do all of the things that he's describing. The Chainalytics has told us already that most of the nefarious transactions that happen on blockchain with cryptocurrency, I want to say it's less than 1%. I know Johnny this morning had a statistic that was like 5%, but I want to say it's not even like 1% when I looked into it. But I want to go back to like Chainlink, right? Because Chainlink has really just like evolved. If you remember, it was one of the projects that did really well in the initial bear market, not the last bear market, but the bear market before that, where it broke because of smart contracts and because it needs oracles, right? It needs data feeds, and smart contracts don't have that. So they really kind of separated themselves with doing all types of oracles and data feeds with all the partnerships, right? And then they evolved, right, with the tokenization of assets. With CCIP, it's a total game changer because they can go to these banks, right? They've already tested things out with that Bank of Australia and tell them, look, you don't need to change your existing infrastructure. That's why I think Swift partnered with them, because all the messaging that they do now, all the training that those banks have now, they can just use that, right? And then it connects them to blockchain. So Chainlink will build all the back end so that it connects to blockchain. And you're going to have banks that aren't looking for like a settlement layer, right? Which is what XRP is. They're just going to be looking for a connection point. And so, I think you're going to have a whole gamut of them, but the real world assets there, I think, be very strong. As far as like, does it really like come to fruition and do we like rotate into this utility phase? I'm not sure. I think I agree with Mario as far as like, you're going to need regulation to know like what is going to be here, what is not. But that doesn't change the fact that this is an attention market and that narrative is going to run very, very hard.
Just wait till Dogecoin gets added back onto Twitter, right, Gonzo?
Right? Like the whole thing with Dogecoin, it's so funny, right? Every time Elon Musk sends a tweet or whatever, it always goes up. It's almost like the anticipation of Doge being used is probably better for the price action than when they finally kind of like make an announcement, right? Because it'll probably end up being a sell the news event. But like you got AVAX that's like messing around with the real world asset tokenization. XLM, you talked about it with Franklin Templeton. So it's not just going to be one blockchain. There are multiple blockchains, right? We just don't know how it's going to play out as far as public and private. That's why I like Chainlink, because it's the connection point and it leverages the link token to be able to use that ecosystem, whether it's the oracles or it's the connection point itself, because you're staking Chainlink. So I think that project will do extremely well.
Mario, we're going to be hopping off at 9:30 tonight, so I just wanted to remind people that this space is sponsored by Merlin, the smartest way to track your crypto, guys. You got to have an exit plan heading into this next bull market, because if you don't have a bull, you're going to get wrecked. So that's why our team created Merlin to help you guys not only create an exit plan, but figure out exactly what your profits and losses are going to be at specific price targets. So check it out, 30 days, absolutely free. And Gonzo, there's a lot of important things that you said within that short clip, but I think that's all know is that tokenized assets doesn't mean instant wealth. It just means it's on the path. So tokenized assets entering the conversation this year is going to make a big difference. And Mario, before I kick it to you, I found something really interesting. So on Stellar, there is already a tokenized money market fund run by Franklin Templeton, and it's small. It's only 250 million. But think about what it means. It's the first of its kind. It's the first tokenized money market fund on a public blockchain, and it's happening in Stellar inside of the United States. I think that really does speak for itself. So when we talk about tokenized assets, what blockchains get you excited?
Is that from the apps? Yeah, I think, look, we like Stellar is a, like in my opinion, it's very like a sleeper project. Like not a lot of people, it's not catching a lot of people's attention. And that's when you need to be paying attention, because these projects like Stellar and some of the others that you're going to find in the top 20, even top 30 of coin market cap, that over the last, like I want to say 3 to 6 months, as we've been seeing crypto react very bullishly, and all the attention's on Solana. Keep your eye on those blockchains, because especially the ones that have survived, or that have been around, I should say, multiple cycles. Because if they have a use case, they have a team, they have developers, they have a lot of code that's being done in the background, they have partnerships. You want to keep an eye on those, especially as an investment thesis, and especially if prices have been suppressed. So and by suppressed, or if the prices haven't exploded. And Stellar is definitely one of them. I mean, Stellar, I know that the price action for Stellar seems to mimic or copy XRP a lot, but XLM is at a really discounted price. I mean, if we look at XLM's all-time high, and or even if we compare how the market has behaved versus XLM's price, I mean, it's at a really good price to get into as a project. But most people won't, because it's not something that feels exciting right now. And when it doesn't feel exciting, that's when you really need to be paying attention and getting into it, because there is going to be a shift in narrative. There always is. And whenever that shift in narrative happens, that's when people are going to flood in to invest into that new excitement. And I really think that, all of this to say that I really think that there is going to be a time where projects like XLM and Stellar and XRP and all these like XDC and stuff, there is going to be a time where there's going to be a narrative. There's going to be something that happens, whether it's tokenization or involvement with banks, that finally comes out as news to be positive, and prices are going to go up. And that's going to be
something in that range.
I am not saying 35,000, but I am saying 589,000.
I'm just kidding, guys. I just want to say for everybody joining us tonight.
Abs, you're having this weird echo. Like,
Is it still there?
People posted about it.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna try. Thank you.
So,
I thought it was just me.
Nah, I can hear it too. I think everyone else can hear it too. So make sure to put your hands up if you guys have a question. Mario's been talking about the real world assets narrative. Definitely a website to check out is Deepin Ninja, right? Because it's going to go into that whole Deepin narrative. But when we talk about AI, you've already seen ChatGPT and how fast assimilated to ChatGPT. And when you listen to Elon talk, and he talks about how, there's going to be a shortage of GPs, right? Because you need AI. All these AI projects, they need certain things. So, I don't know if I'm going to be able to pick the right AI projects, right? Because it's still a developing kind of narrative or projects. But that's why I like projects like Filecoin, RWE, because it's decentralized storage, right? And so you're going to need that storage space when it comes to like AI. And so if you go to Deepin, you'll see there's a lot of different narrative tokens. You have like Hive Mapper that's on Solana, Renders on Solana. Hive Mapper is kind of like the GPS thing that they have. There's a that's on in the Cosmos ecosystem that is like a decentralized PN. Can't think of what it called. I think
Sentinel.
it starts with an S.
Sentinel?
Yeah, Sentinel. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sentinel.
I run a node with them.
Yeah, that's awesome. Right. And so I think
Gonzo, did you know? Is my audio better on this microphone?
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yep, it's good to go.
Okay, perfect. So I wanted to ask you guys. So what are a couple narratives that we know for sure are going to come around this way we can take advantage of it? Like, I know for example, last cycle we got NFTs, we got gaming, but we also got this weird narrative where like all of these different influencers began backing projects, whether it was like Steph Curry with TX or Logan Paul with his NFTs. You had the Nelk boys launch their NFTs. So like, what are some of the narratives you think that we can capitalize on going into this next bull market, Gonzo?
I think that, the Ethereum ecosystem will be really good, deep in crypto gaming. You just reminded me of something. Just be careful when it comes to influencers. There was a whole thing that happened, right, with Satoshi VM, which is a layer 2 scaling solution on Bitcoin that connects to Ethereum, the Ethereum virtual machine, right? All these influencers were tweeting about it, talking about how awesome it is. But when you look, these guys probably got in the pre-sale or kind of the ICO. I think the ICO was 9 cents. It did a 300x, right? And so just be careful with that kind of stuff. Like if you're able to go to launch pads and you get in on those projects, great. But when you see like a coordinated kind of like messaging thing, we saw it with ICP a little ago, just question it, right? I think that's a TM is going to be a good project, right? It's going to fall into that narrative of Bitcoin and ordinals and also into the EVM kind of layer 2 scaling solution narrative. So I think it'll do well. But what you don't want to do is like this project hits the market and then they're dumping on you because they're up 100, right? And who isn't, right? I'm not saying that they're evil people or whatever. Like if you get in at 9 cents and it just did a 300x, right? Like of course you're gonna like pull profits, right? So just be careful with those kind of projects and those narratives. There are a lot of new projects that are going to be coming out on different launch pads. So look into those. I know that Ape Terminal is kind of a launch pad where a Satoshi VM came out of. So, check it out and see if you can get into some of these projects, put in a couple $100. And if you hit one of these 300Xs, you could definitely pull projects, but just, be careful with that.
So if Logan Paul comes out with an NFT, stay away or jump in, Gonzo, just for the, I know I'm throwing you a softball here, but let's address this.
I would say stay away, especially depending on where we are in the market. Now, look, some of these projects have like free minting, and like I see a problem with that. Where you go in, you mint a project, maybe you pay like $5-6 for gas fees, and you want to hold on to it. But I have a bunch of NFTs from like the Stars ecosystem, right? Because they're super cheap, they're a few dollars. It kind of like I like the ecosystem and I like the NFTs, right? So I just have them. Not a big deal. I'm not looking to flip them or anything like that. But you can see that the NFT market bottomed out. I want to say it was like last year when you had all those influencers that were just kind of going after each other. I think that signaled the bottom. And then, if you can get into one of these good projects, right? I'm not going to sit there and throw shade on NFTs, but like if you got in the depths of the bear market, then you're going to get the gain of the NFT along with the gain of it, right? But I would be FOMOing in. Remember what happened last cycle? Like all these different minting projects, a lot of them were scams. All just kind of faded out. Even if they weren't scams initially, they ran out of money. Everybody was trying to like flip NFTs. Like, you'd buy 3, you would sell 1, you had that whole kind about it. And, I'm more, I would rather do something like our NFT project, right? Not to show our NFT project, but because what it does is all the NFTs are pretty much the same, and it gives you access to our ecosystem, right? To our conferences, to the meet and greets, right? It has a real utility. It's not about like the different, characteristics that makes it valuable.
Yep.
That you have access to the 3T Warrior ecosystem, and so that's why I love it.
Like that's the biggest difference. We got to separate. I think Johnny said this earlier on Google today. He goes, we got to separate JPEGs from NFTs because an image on a blockchain is not the same thing as an NFT like we're offering, where it gets you discounts, it gets you limited access opportunities, first mover advantage. If you launch a product, the person with the NFT gets an opportunity to buy it before the open public. Like those types of things are very unique and very exciting. But when you talk about this, digital duck is better looking than that digital duck, that's where I think you lose the majority of the public. So when JetBlue launches an NFT that'll give you 10% off on all flights, we're going to see these things everywhere, and that's what I'm waiting for. But Mario, we only got a couple minutes left. Floor is yours.
Yeah, I think you're right. I definitely feel like we will get another type of NFT craze. I mean, NFTs are here to stay. No doubt about it. I think the technology is fantastic, and I think that the use cases that it potentially can like serve are, to me, a no-brainer. It's going to happen, and I could totally see it in our future. So the real question is, what's going to be kind of the hype or the drive to send NFTs back into into that euphoric state or that interest state, right? And that's what I'm going to keep an eye on. I definitely still have some NFTs from the previous cycle, which some of them I'm like, man, I can't believe I spent that much money on that thing, on that ape or whatever. But it is what it is. You participate in the market and you learn and you grow for the next cycle. But yeah, I'm excited to see what comes out of NFTs and going into the. I know that a lot of people have bad taste in their mouth, and there was a little bit of rumors and unfortunately. With all the big celebrity figures that were involved with the crypto space, more specifically with NFTs, that again has painted a little bit of a bad picture. But I think people can move on, and I think that the space is growing, and there's more positive stuff coming, to crypto, which is starting to paint a better picture. So I'm definitely excited, and I'm gonna jump off after this, Ab. So I want to say,
thank you so much, Mario.
Love you guys.
We appreciate you, bro. Thank you so much for jumping on with us. And also, I just want to address what Mario said. I think this is what we're going to see for the first time ever. Big companies launching NFT projects. Like we haven't seen an Apple NFT. We haven't seen an Amazon NFT. I think in 2024, 2025, this is going to be the newest narrative. In the 2021, it was the celebrities. It was companies. Get ready. 2024 is going to be real world utility with NFTs. And honestly, I don't think they're going to be on Ethereum. I think they're going to be on Solana. I think they're going to be on AVAX. I think they're going to be on a lot of these other smaller blockchains that can hopefully make a ton of our listeners money in the process. But Gonzo, I'm going to kick it to you, and then we'll go to Johnny K. Do you agree? Do you think we're going to see real NFTs in these next maybe 12 to 18 months?
Yeah, I think what you're going to see is you're going to see companies like Nike and all those things start to do kind of loyalty programs, right? And they're going to find a way to kind of merge loyalty programs with maybe payments. You've already kind of seen that with that Project Amino, I think the San Francisco 49ers is sponsors of theirs, where they kind of have a loyalty program and you get like the coin, and you get credits, and then you get discounts. So I think see things like that, right? And so pay attention to that. I know that I think it was Nike that did a free, or one of the big companies did kind of a free mint. And just because it was Nike, I think you had to pay a certain amount in gas fees, but I think now like the minimum price is like 4 ETH, right? So there'll be things like that where people can still speculate and things like that. But I think it'll come down to some kind of rewards program, loyalty program, where you get discounts or you get an access to their ecosystem. I could see Disney doing that. Like Disney on Flow came out with their pins, right? People are really big with collectibles, collecting pins. So they did the NFT version of that. Flow also is a sponsor, or not a sponsor, but they're doing the NFL ticket, right? So for the Super Bowl coming up, you're going to get an NFT and it's on the Flow blockchain. So I think Flow is another kind of layer one that's really underrated, that has like, NBA Top Shots, partnerships with NFL and other big companies. So I think it'll have its time in the sun.
That's pretty cool too, guys. That's another narrative that we think may arise during this next cycle. And Johnny, first of all, welcome in. But we're talking about a couple of narratives that we think may come up during this next cycle and how we can use that to our advantage. Like when Logan Paul, and we were using this as a joke, but when Logan Paul launches his NFT, should we buy it? Should we stay away from it? And that's kind of where we went from there. But Gonzo said something important, which is sports teams, NFL, NBA, NHL, MLB, they're yet to launch real NFT projects. So that's going to be a huge difference this next cycle as well. Wouldn't surprise me at all if you can make money on these assets. Why wouldn't the New England Patriots launch an NFT? 6-time Super Bowl champions, Johnny Crypto. But I'm going to give you the open floor. Welcome in. How you feeling?
Let's remember that the Pittsburgh Steelers were the real first 6-time Super Bowl champions. But let me just say good evening to all the crypto maniacs out there tonight. We love you and appreciate you guys for showing up every single day. And shout out to Gonzo and you and Mario for covering my butt. I had some family issues I had to deal with. Everything's good now. I'm back home. I'm happy to be here. And yes, I would stay away from anything Logan Paul does. But apparently when he does touch, he certainly knows how to make money for himself. But I don't know. I'm not so sure he's helping the community.
Spot on, Johnny. And first of all, if anybody wants to come up here and ask a question or join the conversation, just raise your hand because we're going to wrap this thing up a little bit early tonight. But Johnny, one of the things that we were talking about was the fact that this time around, just like it was last time, Bitcoin is set to break all-time high in 2024 and then enter into 2025 with a lot of optimism and a lot of bull run behind it. But we're talking about exit plans, and in the short term, we're seeing a Bitcoin sell-off. Grayscale sold $500 million worth of Bitcoin today. Almost $4 billion in the last 8 days worth of Bitcoin is what they've dumped on the open market. So when everybody's looking at Bitcoin and saying, why are we down from 44,000 to 39,000? Well, $3.5 billion worth of selling pressure came from Grayscale alone. That's insane in and of itself. What are some of your thoughts and your live reaction to that news, Johnny?
Yeah, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, I've always told you that I said on Good Morning Crypto too, that I thought we'd be going down in through to March. We all kind of knew this was going to be, or we all felt pretty strongly that this was going to be a sell the news event. Most of these things are. You never really see too many that go the opposite direction and continue to pump after the news is released. In fact, I don't know if I could think of any scenarios, to be honest with you, other than earnings. But, so at the end of the day, not surprised. I think there's going to be a pullback. We'll be pulling back. And, it's a natural progression. The smart money is going to take their profits. The dumb money is going to lose their money. That's just how the game works. And that's the importance, Abs, of what you said earlier, an exit plan. The reason why some of us are feeling pretty good is during this past pump that we just recently had. I don't know about you, but my Merlin app was going off and telling me this price target was hit, that price target was hit. I even think Gonzo texted me one night and said, showed me his Solana target was hit or whatever it was. But the point is, if you have an exit plan and it goes off, you stick to your exit plan and you sell. And let me tell you, I'll give you the perfect example. So I think I had put in like an exit target of 42 or 43,000 for Bitcoin, right? And when it went off, I stuck. This was the first time I had exceeded that. I didn't know where the top was. I didn't know we were going to 48 or 49, but it hit 32, and that's when I went off and I sold, right? And then it went to 48, and I was like, now because I'm used to it, I don't have the old school experience, mental, emotional effect I would have had. Like, God damn it, why did I sell at 42? Things at 48. I lost $6,000 potential. Blah blah blah. Right, all that. But no, I didn't have a single thought like that. I said, you know what? I said, it's okay that I sold at 42. It's okay it went to 48. Because I know at some point it's going down. And where are we right now, Abs?
Wait, 39. You're at 39,000.
Sold at 42. So guess what, baby? I'm in the green. and that money's sitting on the sideline, just waiting for the son of a bitch to keep coming a little further down. Probably going to test the low 30s or somewhere in the 30s. But the point being is, you see, when you take profits, you're never going to take profits that are going to feel good, because shit's still going to be going up if you're taking profits. Because you and I don't know the top. We're not the elites. We don't have the data. We can't see when the maximum leverage has occurred. We don't know what's occurred until it's occurred. So all you can do is sell on the way up. And, sometimes you're going to sell early. I guarantee you 98% of the times you're going to sell too early. But it's okay, because, Abs, what I say, nothing always goes up. Shit always comes back down. And, boy, you're going to feel great when it comes back down. And you're saying like, ooh, good thing I stuck to my exit plan and did that. And that's why we invented Merlin, Abs, because the nice thing about Merlin is when you see that text alert, that's discipline right there. That's training your brain to say, I told myself I was going to sell at this point. I'll be honest with you, dude, I forgot I even put 42 as one of them. When Merlin sent it to me and told me, I was like, oh, shit, I forgot about that. I'm like, you know what? I put it in there for a reason. I'm going to stick to my guns. I'm going to execute the trade. I did. I was pissed off, that it kept going up. But I was like, okay, I know how the game's played. And now I feel great that we're at 39 and I sold at 42.
And we got some bearish price action ahead of us, Johnny. That's what we were just debating before at the beginning of this call, was that Bitcoin looks like it's at least going to come back down and retest $36,000 in the next couple of weeks. And even if we go all the way to that next level of support, which is $32,000, guys, the sky is falling on CNBC. We are at $32,000 for Bitcoin. That would be such an exciting opportunity for somebody like me. I would be going in there, taking advantage of these low buying prices, knowing where we are in the market cycle. That's just as important as the price in and of itself, right? Why do I say that, Johnny? Because I understand this. We came out of our bear market. We just had a year where we went from $16,000 to above $45,000. And nobody's even, it's like the most unappreciated bull run year ever. We did a 3X and people are pessimistic about Bitcoin and some of these alts. Get ready, guys. If we go to $32,000, that is such an exciting opportunity, because I genuinely believe this. We're going to see a six-figure Bitcoin. Once this thing breaks all-time high, $100,000 Bitcoin is just such a beautiful headline. We're going to see it this year. I genuinely believe it, Johnny. So it's not hopium. I'm saying that I don't own a ton of Bitcoin. I wouldn't profit a ton if Bitcoin went to 100,000. The whole reason is that the narratives are just too perfect. The big money's here. Grayscale's doing their selling. They're converting their futures product into a spot ETF. Once that takes place, and that's a lot of liquidity. It's $27 billion of liquidity right now, guys. But once that takes place, it's just buyers. It really is just, it's like that. Once that selling pressure is done, it's just bullish momentum. We're going to have all of these huge companies buying it, creating these new funds, bragging about how much money they're making and offering it to the boomers that they have as clients. All of that stuff is yet to take place, and I think it happens in 2024. Now, that has nothing to do with the altcoins, but if Bitcoin's $100,000, you got to think that a $4,000 Ethereum minimum. You got to think we're looking at a $1 XRP, right? So
$1.
Listen,
the XR community will have a heart attack if Bitcoin's at $100,000 and we're only at $1.
Let me ask you this: as somebody who's held this token for 4 or 5 years, whatever it is, let me ask you this: what sounds more likely? If I was to sit here in front of these 28 people and say, "Oh, XRP is going to be $5 when Bitcoin's 100," I would say that, but I've been here for 5 or 6 years. I understand the more realistic approach to say, "Get ready for a single dollar, guys," even though that might not be what exactly people want to hear. So. Tough reality, but I swear I'm in the same boat. It's like sometimes you just look and just go, this is my team. And so that's just what it is when it comes to XRP, Johnny.
Yeah, listen, XRP is one of those right now that it's certainly been a laggard. Everybody's disappointed on it. But that's usually when you don't expect something to happen. That's usually when it happens. And look at the chart. It's blowing up nicely for something to potentially happen. And it couldn't be at a better time because the sentiment is so low. Everybody's disappointed on it. People are giving up on it. People are changing their influencer names. They're dropping the XRP from their name and everything. And that's kind of like the signs to say, hey, this thing's getting ready to tip over. And you said something about Bitcoin, and I want to throw it to Gonzo's way because, you said like 32,000, like, oh my God, if we get to 32,000, you're right. Like everybody's like, the sky is falling, right, Gonzo? You're going to hear people say, oh my God, Bitcoin's dead. Bitcoin's going to zero. You're going to hear all these narratives and all this shit that it's over and it was overplayed. And the reality is it's just another way the game is played because the selling has to happen. Grayscale has to dump and get out of their current fund into the ETF fund. And as they make that conversion over, we are seeing a lot of liquidity come out, but it will going back in and it's going into something that's going to be stable. So I think the sweet thing here is you wait to see how low this thing drops. Right, and you don't know what the bottom is, but as it starts to find that bottom and double tap it and retest it and start to head up, that's probably a perfect entry point to start DCAing back in. Unless you want to DCA on the way down, you can do that too, and really put yourself in a position, because I do agree with you that at some point we will be sitting and talking about $100,000 Bitcoin. And I know Bitcoin. I know BC Backer threw everybody a monkey wrench with his, I don't know, $3,000 or $10,000 prediction, but I think at some point, Abs, we will be sitting around 100,000. It
There's
just makes
too much money, Johnny. I just don't, and I love BC Backer. We got to speak to him at XRP Las Vegas. We got to speak to him in New York, but I
We
just
have to
don't get
speak
it
PNC.
on Good Morning Crypto, guys. But I just don't get it because there's so much buying power. I'm not even looking at the charts. I'm just thinking like I'm doing the math.
You're thinking liquidity. You're just thinking liquidity.
Exactly.
Yeah, Abs, I am right there with you 100%, with so much liquidity that I think is going to be unlocked and come into this space over the next year to 2 years, that I can't imagine that once this dumping and Grayscale finishes what they're doing, and that kind of then stabilizes, it forms the bottom. I can't imagine with new liquidity coming in and only 450 coins being available every day by miners after we having. I can't imagine that we aren't going to go start heading back up the other way. Now, I know BC Backer thinks we're never going to, I think he said he doesn't think we're going to retest or break all-time highs in this next bull run, but I don't know. I'm finding it hard to believe that, because of what you said, all the liquidity and all this buying once we bottom out and all the selling is done. I'm curious what Gonzo thinks there. Gonzo, you think BC's right? Are we never going to retest all-time highs again on Bitcoin?
Well, there is a theory that some of like the TA guys believe in. It's called the 5.3 theory, where basically if you take the all-time high percentage gain divided by 5.3, and then it gives you the all-time high percentage gain in the next cycle. And it's been exact, right? And so the people that believe this, they believe that when you do the math, and it's been pretty spawn, right? Every cycle, that the next all-time high will be 93,000. And so that is what I'm going to be watching, because if we get to 93,000 and this thing rolls over and it comes back down, then not only is the 5.3 theory accurate, but what goes along with that theory is it talks about like assets, right? And that assets that have longer history, chart history, data that go back, they go through these phases where they have a parabolic run like Bitcoin did. It does a lateral movement for 10 years. So that would be like what we've done, right? When we went up to 69, we came down to 15. Let's say we go to 93, we come back down. And then after the 10-year process is over, people are already kind of shooken out because they go, oh man, this is not going to all-time high again, this, that, and the third. And then what it does is the asset goes parabolic for the next phase, right? And so kind of paying attention to that, it's a very interesting theory. I'll be watching to see what happens at 93,000 to see if, we break that and we go higher. Because if we go to 100K, then validated that, right? If we roll over, then I'm really going to start researching and paying attention to that theory.
Yeah, very fascinating. Guys, when we get to 93,000, remember, you're going to hear on TV that we're going to 150. Don't forget how the game is played.
And Johnny, I think that we can use this to our advantage too when we talk about where we are, right? Because that's what I'm not understanding about BC Backer's theory, and he's much smarter than I am when it comes to TA, price charts, all that stuff, is that we just came out of 2022, which is when we had terrible narratives, no money, global pandemic. You know what I mean? Like the world was falling before our eyes, and Bitcoin went to $16,000. So what could possibly happen now, knowing that we have regulation, adoption? We went through an education this last 3 years as well, where I feel like a lot more people are just comfortable. Even the people who don't like the asset class are kind of more comfortable with the idea. They understand it a little more, even if it's to just debate it in the other direction. So with all of those things working in our favor, I'm just confused. Like, what is his narrative exactly? What does he think is going to take us to 3,000? Because it's going to have to be something catastrophic, right? Now you're talking about like Black Swan event type things. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it would have to be something, really devastating where, Bitcoin just ceases to operate. Miners go down. I don't know. It'd have to be something crazy where it just can't, where the idea of it being a decentralized, independent, living, breathing thing on its own that can't be stopped. If that idea is invalidated for some reason, because all the miners are shut down or whatever, and Bitcoin stops working, that could be something that I think, again, you asked me the question, so I'm giving you my opinion. I could be completely wrong. But to me, if you get something like that, all the elites and all the smart money or the big people that are in it tell you, Michael Saylor and Patrick Bet-David and all these other people that talk about Bitcoin and why they're in it. They tell you they're in it because they believe it's a better currency. They believe it's a better way to transfer, to store your wealth, like a digital gold method, but on steroids, where I can send gold to somebody, through the phone, and 30 seconds the money's there. You heard Patrick Bet-David say in our show, right? Where he said you can't do that with gold, but with digital assets like Bitcoin, you can. Well, if that idea or concept doesn't work, fails for some reason, then that I think would, people would lose confidence. Even because again, Bitcoin's not backed by the government, so the only faith it has is the fact that it works and does what it's supposed to do.
That's the only thing that could make the Bitcoin narrative better if it was backed by Joe Biden. I absolutely agree with you, Johnny Crypto.
I'm not saying that at all.
No, I'm just teasing. I know.
But I do want to say this about Bitcoin. You said, today we played a clip, guys. If you haven't watched Good Morning Crypto, check us out 11 a.m. Eastern Time every single day at the 3T Warrior Academy channel. Come and check out Good Morning Crypto. But today we played the clip of the $3 billion guy. And what did he tell you, Ash? He said, I don't know nothing, zero about crypto. I know zero about Bitcoin. But I got 80,000 invested in it. Now, I know 80,000 is a drop in the bucket. It's not to a billionaire, right? But why did he say he had it? He said he had. So he's a boomer. He goes, I'm a boomer. I know nothing about this shit. He goes, but I got 80,000 in it. And you know why he has 80,000, you guys? Because the boomer, his financial advisor, told him to put some money into it. So, Abs, now that Bitcoin is, you saw the model now. Now that Bitcoin is officially approved as a legal security, the ETF, I should say, the Bitcoin ETF is a legal security that financial advisors can sell. What the hell do you think they're going to start pushing on all their boomer clients?
Bitcoin.
They're going to do exactly what they did to the $3 billion guy.
Yeah.
Right? And everybody and their mother's going to start coming in. And I'm in the same camp as you on this one. I can't imagine when that day starts to come, and I don't think it's happened yet. I think all these financial advisors will be starting to make phone calls to all their boomer clients over the next 2, 3, 4 months. But then when the halving happens and things get exciting, the price starts going up, they're going to ramp that effort up even higher. And for the life of me, I can't imagine that the price isn't going to go up and at least test all-time highs with a limited supply, not half the supply available. And I'm not a Bitcoin maximalist guy, so I have very, very little point. So I'm probably the wrong person to be talking about it. But I'm just saying I can't imagine that we aren't going to see at least a test of all-time highs, and maybe even to what Gonzo's saying, 5.3 theory, going up to 93,000. To me, it just makes sense. There's too much money chasing too little supply. And I hope BC backers listening, because I reached out to him. Would love to have him on the show because I'd love to hear his thoughts on, and listen, the guy is king of the, he's, in my eyes, he's the king of the TA guys. He's always right. He calls the tops right all the time. So I'm not doubting him. I would just love to hear his comments on what he thinks when you think of the overall supply of money that's going to be coming in and chasing a limited supply of Bitcoin on the halving, after the halving. I'd love to know how he thinks that won't have some kind of impact to drive the price up to test all-time highs.
Gonzo, floor is yours.
Yeah, it'd be great to have him because he's an excellent TA guy. He's been doing it for a very, very long time. So it'd be great to hear like his theory. I keep an open mind, right? I keep an open mind to everything. Back, when we were down in that $16,000 level, right? I didn't think we were going to go down to 3,000. I thought, okay, maybe 10, 12, but I always had an open mind, right? And so, you're always looking for certain patterns, reversal candles, things like that. So it'd be great to have him on and to pick his brain. I think the important thing is that you have a plan and that you know what you're going to do, right? So if it doesn't go to all-time high, what are you going to do? If it rolls over, if it really had gone down to 9,000, 3,000, whatever the hell it is, like have a plan, know what you're going to do, right? Let the market come to you, but have a plan. Guys, I got to go. I appreciate you guys letting me be with you tonight, and I will see you guys next time. Love you guys.
Thanks,
Gonzo.
We appreciate you, bro.
Love you too, Gonzo. Thank you, bro. I'll tell you what, I got a plan. We see Bitcoin going down to 3,000, 6,000. I'm going to be buying any miners that are still available. Any miners that are still alive or the stocks are worth anything, because they're going to be pennies on the dollar. There's going to be a huge opportunity at that point.
Well, maybe address this before we close it out here, Johnny, is this April, and I believe it's like April 17th, April 21st, somewhere in that time frame, we're going to have the next Bitcoin halving. And the number of Bitcoin being mined every day globally is going to go from 900 to 450. It's going to affect the price because it's going to affect the supply of Bitcoin entering the market. Very, very simple, guys. You didn't have to go to college for this information. Supply and demand. But one of the things that's very important is that there's all of this new demand entering the market at the exact same time the supply is basically being cut in half. Maybe you can address what you think that means in the short term and what sticks out to you.
I mean, to me, that's the perfect storm. That's exactly what I'm talking about. But while I start addressing that, Abs, let's see if anybody's out there who wants to come up and chat with us. Guys, if you want to talk, raise your hand. Come on up. If you got a question, great. If you just have a comment, that's fine too. You don't have to have a question. We'd love to hear from you guys. You've been sitting here for an hour listening to us. We'd love to listen to you. So come on up, raise your hand. Abs will bring you up so we can hear. But Abs, to me, that is the perfect storm. You have the supply crunch due to the halving, and you've got a supply demand due to these financial advisors pushing all the boomers and everybody else and their mother into Bitcoin, and then they'll fire up all the media channels and they'll be talking about it. I saw today, it was interesting. I saw today in the Good Morning Crypto chat room, people were actually saying that their friends and their parents were starting to ask them, what is Bitcoin and should they do it? Now, that is sign number one. That's early indicator number one, that people are starting, that this is going to be huge mainstream, and it's coming. Well, that's just the beginning of it, where people are starting to wonder what it is, Ab. So just put your seatbelt on. I think we're on for a monstrous ride for the next 5 to 10 years, just like we were back in 94 and 97 when Jeff Bezos was calling all his buddies and saying, hey, hey, you want to invest in my online bookstore that I'm going to sell on the internet? And the very first question people would say to him is, Jeff, what the hell's the internet? And that's exactly what people say to me, Abs, and you, when they ask us, when we talk about crypto, they're like, what the hell is crypto? Well, there's going to be a day and time where that is no longer going to be the question. And at that point, it's going to be too late to invest in this space. But
Sorry, I just realized I was on mute. Johnny, what do you think about crypto entering the presidential conversation? When we talk about people like, Donald Trump and Vivek Ramaswamy, they've both addressed not only central bank digital currencies, but crypto in general over the last couple of weeks. That's something I've been saying on Good Morning Crypto for over a year now, so that was no surprise to me. What do you think about those conversations entering the political narrative? Because there's a ton of people who just follow politics and know nothing about crypto.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that question up, because when you talked about this on Good Morning Crypto about a year ago, you first brought it up, I was on the fence about whether it would come up in the presidential elections campaign discussions. I didn't know if crypto was going to be mainstream enough to make it to the discussions of the most important topics in the world that presidential candidates should be talking about. I wasn't sure. And the fact that they are tells me now, this is where we're headed. It has come up many times now through Vivek and DeSantis and Trump, and they've made it an issue. And I think you're going to hear about it throughout the whole thing. You're going to hear this whole battle of, CBDC is good, CBDC is bad, push back and forth on that. And that's going to bring the tension and wake people up to this idea of cryptocurrencies. And then you're going to have the halving. That's going to bring people aware of cryptocurrencies. And then you're going to have financial advisors calling all the boomers, talking about cryptocurrencies. So do you see where we're headed? Do you see all the catalysts and and then you're going to get CNN and Fox News, everybody else talking about cryptocurrency. It's all headed in that direction. And it all feels like it's being timed at the right timing, as we head into the halving. Boy, I'll tell you, I just find it, and for all those reasons, I find it hard to believe that we're never going to retest 69,000 again with all the cows. I just find it hard to believe, man. But I also find it hard to go against BC Backer because he's always right. So I'm conflicted. I'm completely conflicted. I'm looking for someone else, to give us an opinion of what they think could happen, because you got two different forces working here. You got the man who always gets it right, and then you've got a ton of supply coming in with limited. Demand coming in with limited supply. Something's got to give. Something's got to give, Abs. One person has to be wrong. We'll have to see who it is.
And if you think about it, this is a perfect question to ask like Mark Yusko and Gary Cardone tomorrow, Johnny, because I think if we brought it up, they would laugh. I think so, because without having the background of how accurate BC Backer's been over these last couple of years, it seems outlandish. It seems crazy. But because he's been so accurate, he called the Bitcoin top in 2021. He called the bottom of the bear market in 2022. So there is something to debate here. We did have someone come up to ask a question, so I'm going to kick it over to John Rivera. John, floor is yours.
Sweet.
Hey, how you guys doing? First and foremost, I want to thank you guys for the opportunity. I'm brand new into the crypto world, so I just want to say thank you so much for all the knowledge you guys share. Still brand new learning and doing as much research as I can. The only question I have, I know you guys weren't talking about XRP, just want to have a quick question. What confidence can you instill to those who are still holding tight in the XRP army, and your thoughts on where their future leads to?
Johnny Crypto, floor is yours, and I'll go next.
So the way I think about XRP is, XRP is interesting because it was my very, very, very first currency purchase, right? So it's kind of like your first born son or daughter. There's always a special place in the heart for them. So to me, on that perspective, just putting that bias aside, I kind of just look at XRP and I say, what is the real world solve that they have? Do they have a technology that is worth me putting 20, 30, 40, 50% of my investment in my bucket into them? What is the real world value they bring? Do they have a good company behind them? Do they have good management leadership company? Are they well funded? Okay. Just the way you'd ask yourself those same exact questions if you're investing in stocks, right? You want to make sure the company you're investing in has those kinds of same traits. And when you look and you do the sniff test about that, you kind of look at it, you say, okay, check the box. They got good management leadership. I really like Brad. I like the leadership that's there at the top. I love, the CTO. I think he's super smart. I think the technology itself as a whole has multiple areas that it can go hunt. I think it can play in the cross-border payment solution space. I think it can play in the NFT tokenization marketplace, custodial place. We know they bought Mataco to kind of do that. So these guys are smart. They're taking their money and they're investing it in areas to build on natural adjacencies of the company, to be able to play in different spaces of where we're headed. And we're in the beginning of an entire new space that we're creating. And they have a couple pieces that are going to play in that space. So for me, for you, as the first time rolling new in the space, if you're just listening to the narratives and you're looking at the price action, you're like, Jesus Christ, the thing's a stable coin. It's always 50 or 60 cents. The reality is, yeah, it is there today. Its narrative is old, the same old cross-border narrative. I think that's 7 years old now, and not exciting, not drawing attention, not bringing in new money. I think at the end of the day, that is going to be something that in the long run is going to, is worthy of the investment in terms of where I want to make sure I've got some horses in my stable. So does that help answer your question?
Absolutely, it does. Like I said, just like you, I first invested into XRP, and I invested in it for the reasons that you said, for the technology. And after doing my careful research, it just makes sense that the world needs something like this. But I know on Twitter and all through all these social media platforms, there's a lot of hopium and there's a lot of bearish talks. So sometimes it's very easy to get caught up in those narratives, as you just said. So I guess I wanted to speak to you guys because you guys seem very well informed, and pretty much just wanted to pick your brain to see, is it still worth having confidence in this thing? Even though I'm still brand new, just want to make sure that my investment is something that I can definitely bank on moving forward.
Yeah, I think, John, you bring a good point. At the end of the day, only you know what you're. So here's the best advice I'll give you is you have to do what helps you sleep good at night. And if you've invested funds that you can't afford to lose into a technology that we don't know which ones are going to win or lose, then you've invested too much, right? And I'm not saying you personally, I'm saying you in general. In general, I tell everybody, invest what you can afford to lose so that if you lose it, you're not kicking yourself, you're not looking, jumping off a cliff, right? And if it wins, great. Then you double, triple, quadruple, 10x, 100x your money, and you're feeling great. And and then invest that into something that produces more money for you. If you really want to be like the smartest man, Bobby.
Thank you for tuning in to the Merlin Crypto Market Update located on the X app. I'm Abs, your host and Senior Engagement Officer at Merlin, and we hope you enjoyed this episode from our Merlin X Spaces. Remember, you can catch us live every other Tuesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern on the X app at Get Merlin Crypto. If you want to take your crypto tracking to the next level, don't miss out on our free 30-day trial at merlincrypto.com. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.